Welcome back, everybody. It is that time again. It's Thursday. It's 8 o'clock. And it's time for another episode of the Get Off My Lawn podcast, which is, of course, the best show that nobody's watching. I think so anyway. I'm not biased. But we're very proud every week to go out live to tens of people. So it would really be cool if people would help share this, get those links out there, and tell your friends and family and everybody else to come hang out with us on on Thursday nights and just converse, get in the live chat, have some fun, do all that fun stuff. So tonight we don't have any special guests that went out and got recruited to come in and talk about a specific topic. We've got a topic. We're going to talk about that and just kind of see where the night leads and just kind of have some fun and just hang out and not stress a whole lot. So let's real quick here go through a couple of announcements. Of course, as always, leave those comments out there because if you are not commenting, we can't see you on YouTube. And I think Sandhills Sweetheart can watch the Facebook side and know who's out there. She cannot. She used to do that, but that doesn't work anymore. Anyway, if you're not commenting on either side, Facebook or YouTube, then we don't know you're there. So let us know that you're out there. Get those comments in there, and we'll hang out and have some fun. I found a cool thing. I'll have to show it to Defense Dad as my fully semi-official co-host here in a second on the comment side. And of course, if you're watching this after the fact, you can still comment. There's a comment section. It's just not live. We won't get to see it until later. And if you need to reach out directly in email, it is nesandhillsmedia@gmail.com. And of course, we'll put the ticker up there. The views and opinions expressed on this content belong to the individual expressing them. They don't necessarily reflect any of the views of our sponsors, and we're not offering any legal or medical advice on this show. We're just offering opinions, and that's it. And those are worth what you paid for them. So, and of course, we are also a proud member of Self Defense Radio Network. Go check out all the cool shows over there at sdrn.us. Some really cool stuff out there. You need to go and see what's out there. They're adding new shows all the time over there. So, all right, we'll pull that down. We'll come back over here. Who's out there watching right now? Travis is out there and in here. Of course, my beautiful bride is in the chat and over there in the producer's chair off screen where she likes to be. And maybe one of these days we won't get her on screen, but maybe one of these days we'll at least get her own microphone. We'll see. But she doesn't want the camera on her, which I don't understand because she's better looking than me. And
get her the microphone. Get her the microphone. Do it. Do it.
We've got one. She doesn't want to use it. We'll see. She
turn it on. Just turn it on. Don't tell her. She can't hear me, can she?
Yeah, I think she can. She's probably going to type something nasty in the chat out there too to you. Who else is out there? Hillbilly Up making a comeback appearance out there in the live chat. Welcome back. Irish Wristwatcher is out there. DJ Play Nice is in the house. Defense Dad is getting photobombed by his cat. That's all right. I'm going to get photobombed by the dog when she gets bored and wants to go play and run around and jump and stuff. So that's all right. Again, we're just kind of hanging out. The dogs, the cats, whatever. If Ammo Dog wants to make an appearance, Travis, that's cool. Whatever he decides. How's he feeling? Oh, you're muted, dude. Can't hear you.
There you go. Sorry about that. He's 100% right now. He's fully healed from his surgery and just got a little battle scar to show what he's been through. But he's got more energy than I ever remember before. So
wow,
it's really taken a toll on me. So yeah,
good. Well, he's definitely feeling better then. Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, real quick, we're just gonna say hello to all of our guests. So since I called on you first, we'll just say hello to Travis P11. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate the invite.
I think it's going to be other than the energy. Are you doing as well as Ammo Dog?
Yes, I am great.
Good,
I am 100%. I've had my coffee this evening. I'm just finishing up with some water right now and rock and rolling, man. I feel great.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Also, if you're paying attention and you can't see your screen very well, Travis is on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If we go to the bottom left-hand corner, we've got Squib Load coming to us. Still at work for now, so Squib may be kind of in and out. How are you?
Doing all right. So on the plus side, the third shift guy quit, so I don't have to worry about him coming in here following me around going, what are you doing? Who are you talking to?
Cool.
On the minus side, they could come walking in here at any moment and say they broke something else. What they've been doing is breaking stuff so they don't have to work. And sometimes I can fix it in 10 minutes. Sometimes it takes longer. So if I drop out, it's either because the Wi-Fi in the plant is not so much, or I had to go fix something. So
Gotcha.
I would like to thank everybody out there who's listening now or in the future for that new car purchase. It's much appreciated. And if you haven't bought a new car, you might want to consider it because, it helps drive the economy. And I get paid.
So real quick before we lose you, just in case we would lose you, how's the microchip thing going? Are they finishing the cars now?
So they're still stacked up. Defense said I was talking to you about all these cars in the lot, and that's because one of the lots that they were putting the cars that still needed the infotainment center microchips in is next to the overflow at my local Chevy dealer. And I went back after I told you that. I'm like, oh no, we got tons of cars. And I went back and I looked and I go, oh, there's a partition. Oh, that's not the overflow lot. Those are all the cars waiting on chips. So
I wondered, man, because if you look at new car lots around here, there's like 2.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is they built a new Ford dealership in our township right before all this nonsense started, and they finished it during it. And I started driving by looking, since I talked to you about that, they moved the cars around in such a way so the lot looks more full than what it really is.
Yeah,
so,
we did that during the strike in '93 when I was selling cars. You had to.
Clever spacing.
Yeah, and I've seen that. I've seen that done at auto repair shops. You actually have your employees' cars in the bay sometimes to make the shop look busy, and people go, "Oh, they're busy. They must be better than the other guy who's not." And then they come there for business. So yeah, I told you that it was weeks ago when we were talking off air, and I said that out of ignorance. I thought because the lots were next to each other, but then when I took a closer look, I'm like, oh no, they don't have a lot in their overflow. But the fact that they have any in their overflow is a good sign. We're cranking out parts as fast as we can make them, and it still ain't fast enough. I'm watching the auto racks. Those are the railroad cars that are double decker with the cars in them, leaving the assembly plants full and coming back empty, and just every day. So they're doing what they can, but as far as I know, it really has to do mostly with the infotainment center in the middle. Not really so much the car being able to start and drive away. But I got to tell you, if my stereo doesn't work, or for some people their Google Maps doesn't work, it's like, no, I can wait a little bit longer, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. My Google Maps won't plug in and come up on my screen in my vehicle anyway. I think I need a 1 year newer vehicle for that to work on my phone. But
well, for everybody out there buying and leasing new vehicles, it's much appreciated. Thank you.
There we go. And Sandhill Sweetheart works for one of the local car dealers here in town. How is the new car situation? Do you hear from anybody? She's not in sales.
What do you mean?
Are you getting new ones? Are there some on the lot? Lots of them?
Get them some in every day, it seems like.
All right. She said that it seems like every day there's more coming in on their lot, so that's cool.
I think what'll happen is we had back orders to fill before the nonsense started, and then they shut the plants down for 3 months.
Okay.
We get back, and we still got to fill those back orders, and then we were down for 3 months. And over that time period, you got people who had their vehicles, they just wore out. And there's some people out there that will go buy a new vehicle. They don't want to buy a used one and buy somebody else's problem. They want to get a new one, right? And they're like, I've sank too much money into this. Screw it, I'm buying a new one. Or their lease ran out. I literally had somebody talking to me while the auto plants were shut down and the dealerships were shut down, going, what am I supposed to do? My lease is running out in a couple of weeks. I'm like, I'm sure they'll do an extension or something. So we had all that back up, and then there was just pent-up demand because people couldn't go anywhere, and they were spending all these big fat government checks on something. So there were orders there, and just the snowball effect of not having inventory, whether it be hot sauce at the grocery store or cars at the car lot, helped drive that demand. The reason, some people are going to say there's a shortage of material or spare parts, and that was part of it, but it's mostly labor. And to this day, we're still dealing with labor issues, and other industries are still dealing with labor issues. People still don't want to work. And the government money, as far as I know, is gone. So why they aren't coming to work, I don't know.
I've not figured that one out. And I've said this many, many times. Just looking around in my town, in my area, in my circle of friends, I mean, everybody's short-staffed. every place you go, every restaurant, every store, you name it, you walk into a place in my town and they're short staffed. And yet I'm thinking, I don't know anybody who was actually out of work during COVID. They were either working from home or they were doing something, but I don't know who all these people are that used to be in the workforce and now they're not there anymore. We didn't lose that many people to COVID. That's not it. They didn't die off. So where the heck are they? Who are these people who are not working? How are they living? And where the heck did they go? It's still a mystery to me. And normally
mystery to all of us.
well, I can make heads or tails of most situations and at least come up with a theory that satisfies my brain. And this one, I'm without theory. Out there in the chat or anybody watching on replay, feel free to posit your own theories as to where these people went to, because COVID didn't kill them off, and the monkeypox isn't killing them off. And now that I've said COVID and monkeypox, I'll probably get taken off the air, but we'll see. But again, we're not doctors. We're not telling you how not to get it.
I'll tell you, a lot of people
Wrap it up.
went to work from home jobs.
Yeah, but they're still working. I mean,
or they move back home, or they live with their parents.
something. Yeah,
There's a lot of companies. I have a friend of mine. He works in banking software, like they manufacture, they write it, and they shut down half their offices because COVID has taught a lot of companies that it's more cost efficient to have people working from their home offices. So they've let their leases expire. They got rid of their physical locations. It changed a lot, but
5 years ago at the company I was at before this one, it was mostly office and engineering and stuff like that. And they were talking about rotating people. They would share the same cubicle and you'd have like 3 days on, 2 days off, 2 days on, 3 days off, and just have 2 or 3 people share that same cubicle, and they'd work from home half the week and they'd work at work the other half of the week. I said, that's great until you have a situation where you need to have everybody there, or we would have people from other locations come in or stuff like that. And they're like, oh, we'll just do it all virtual and all that. And, fast forward 3.5 years later, I suppose it would be something like that, about 3 years later. And then, boom, this happens. And that's what they're telling everybody to do. And then afterward, yeah, like you were saying, they realize it's more cost effective. I mean, there's a lot of savings there. But this was something that was being considered. I can't believe that company was the only one considering this, because they were a really big company. And I imagine there were some other ones that were thinking of this years and years before, but that really forced it to happen, right? That kind of gave it that push. But still, okay, those are office jobs. I'm talking about the servers at the restaurants. I'm talking about the people on the assembly line. I'm talking about the truck drivers. I'm talking about all of the blue collar jobs. Where are they? Because they're not working from home, are they?
The ones that you typically saw, the high school kids, the college kids doing that work. I mean, high school is still going, college is still going. Where are these kids coming up with money if they're not working? Because all the payments have run out. There's no more Joe Obama money coming. So, and we all have to pay that back on our taxes anyway. So I mean, it was just a loan. They fronted the cash, but anyway, don't get me started on that part. So, real quick before we go to the topic at hand, DJ Play Nice says, what are you talking about, car with a screen? Just get an atlas and put a compass on the dashboard, which is cool, except for I already own the phone, and it is automatically refreshed. I don't have to buy an updated atlas with updated roads on it. So
I think you're talking about the Volkswagen Atlas. I thought you were talking about the SUV, Volkswagen Atlas. Yeah.
I am old enough to remember one of the first things you did when you bought a car, you wouldn't go bought a compass. You went to Walmart or Kmart, bought the compass,
on the dash,
tape that sucker on the dash.
The clock compass combo that you'd stick up, the horizontal one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the digital one that was a digital compass too. We didn't have anything like that.
Yeah.
You know what? We never had a compass on the car. You know why? Because my dad just knew which way was north. And if the sun's shining, it's not that hard. So
not us city folk.
Yeah.
Get lost in the suburbs.
Patriot out there says all the workers are doing fine. They're just home binge watching garbage on Netflix. Speaking of Netflix, we should have you know what? One of these nights we're just going to BS. We're going to get into stuff that we should watch on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever. And this isn't going to be the night. Let's see here. So, okay. I think that's it. I think that's all the comments I was going to get to for now anyway. Defense that I was going to show you, if you're over there in the comment section on StreamYard there, if you roll over one, there's a star. And if you click the star, then up above, you can switch over to just the short list of starred ones if we want to mark one and find it later. I don't know how long that's been there, but I just found it tonight. You're muted. I can't hear you, but
I just say it's the first I've seen that.
Yeah, that might be a new thing that they just added for us. So StreamYard, if you're watching, thank you. Thanks for always making this stuff better. That's pretty cool. It would still be great if we could have a thing where whoever's talking goes full screen, and then the next person that talks, it just automatically does it. But maybe one day, we'll see.
It would be great if StreamYard worked with mobile the way Hangouts used to.
It would be great if Hangouts just was back.
Yep, I'd pay for it.
I would too if I could have it back the way it used to be. But that's all right. So anyway, speaking of StreamYard and all that fun stuff, let's talk about sponsorship real quick, because we are able on StreamYard to go multiple platforms. So we're on 2 Facebook pages and we're on YouTube as well, and that is because of our sponsors. So tonight's show is brought to you by Decoding Firearms, an easy-to-read guide on general gun safety and use. It's a comprehensive guide to aid new shooters and veterans alike to get up to speed on the safe use of guns. There are over 115 illustrations and 266 pages of content, so the book is very comprehensive. If you're interested in learning more about decoding firearms, you can go to johnpetrolino.com and check that out. You can go to Amazon and get the Kindle version with the full color pictures, or this one here with the black and white images in it. And find those on Amazon. You can get yours today. Guys, I got to show you this. My dad knows that I do this on Thursday nights. Travis, you can relate. Dad's calling right now because he doesn't know that I'm doing this right now. Sorry, Dad.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm going to not take his call.
If he's like my dad, he'll call back 6 or 7 times. And you're like, I got my show. Oh, yeah, I forgot. It's only been, well, for you, it's only been maybe a year that you've been doing on Thursday nights. But still, I'm like, oh.
Just over a year. We started back up last year in June.
So y'all don't have the relative that if you don't answer your phone, they instant message you, and if you don't message you, they text you. What are you doing?
Well, I mean, I have relatives that'll do that, but not my dad.
I have one that does that every time.
I'm lucky if my dad leaves me a voicemail, let alone sends me a text. If my dad sent me a text, I'd know that one of my nephews had his phone, or maybe his wife. Anyway, thank you, John Petrolino, for being cool and being a sponsor of the show. So, all right, let's just talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we see. And I keep thinking back to like Gillette's toxic masculinity campaign there with the razors, which made everybody so mad for a while. Oh, cancel Gillette, go to Harry's Razors or whatever. Go find a different one. Go to buy a Schick because Gillette, down with Gillette. They don't like masculinity. There's always something that goes along. Well, and then I see posts because I've got friends on Facebook who don't share my views of the world. And I know that can be a shock to certain people, but we don't have to see eye to eye on everything to be friends, not in my opinion. And so sometimes I'll see people share the post that says, teach your sons to respect women and understand that, whatever those posts, I can't even remember how they go now, but basically saying, don't just go try to hook up with girls or whatever, which, yeah, I mean, with everything going on and the pox and everything else that's happening, teach everybody not to just go hook up. Right. But I always want to comment, and sometimes I do, depending on who posted it and how well they know me. Sometimes I comment back and say, that's awesome. Let's do that. Let's also teach our daughters and of course, yes, those of you that know me know I have no son, I have no daughter, but just ours as a nation. Let's teach our young people, young Americans. Let's teach the young ladies to respect themselves, that they have value, and the young men too, because half of what I see going on and half of what's happening, it has nothing to do with masculinity, because we all know if it's masculine, it's not toxic, and if it's toxic, it's not masculine. Although I do have one of these, so just in case, I can put that on and warn people. For those of you not watching on the screen, I got a cool patch. It says, warning, keep back 100 feet, toxic masculinity.
You just ooze toxic masculinity there, John.
I do. I ooze it. I'm like Jesse Ventura in Predator. Anyway, we're not gonna keep going down what he said there. So I just want to talk a little bit about what would this country look like if we actually raised all of our youth, and some of you, if the shoe fits, wear it. If not, don't. If you're raising your kids to know their value, good on you. But you know as well as I do that you're the exception to the rule, that so many parents are falling short of teaching the kids what they need to know in life, not only life skills, right? I mean, we all complain about, yeah, it's cool to learn Pythagorean theorem, but what would be also cool is if there was a class that taught kids today how to balance a checkbook, how to keep track of their money on their debit card, especially if they're just going to use the Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or whatever. And well, gosh, where'd all my money go? I spent it already. How to change a flat tire and stuff like that. Stuff that I take for granted growing up as a kid on a ranch. And we did learn that in driver's ed class back 1,000 years ago. And we did change a tire. Granted, it was square and carved out of stone, but we learned how to change one. But I mean, just there's so many things right now that America, I think, is failing our youth. And we're starting to see, because some of these failed youth, and I'm going to blame society as a whole, not any one specific person. And it's not only the far left and it's not only the far right. It's society as a whole. But we've failed youth for so long that now some of them are even old enough to vote and help shape public policy. And it really scares me, because these kids don't know what their value is. They don't value themselves. They don't value their freedom, their liberty. And they take certain things for granted. And they also don't value, the feeling of putting in a hard day's work and then getting an honest dollar for honest work. There's such a sense of entitlement across America now in the young people. And again, for those of you that want to, get butthurt or whatever, if you're not raising your kids that way out there, cool, good. Clearly those aren't the kids I'm complaining about, because I do see some really good kids come through every now and then. But the fact that I have to say, I do see some really good kids come through every now and then is proof that, that's the exception to the rule. We talk about those. Those are the noteworthy ones, right? It should be normal to see kids that use their manners and say, please and thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Things like that. And we don't see that very much anymore. So it just, there's so many things that we could kind of go off on. And if we want to have a little rant session, that's cool. We can. But let's just talk about, kind of the things where America has failed our youth. And then, how do we get it back, or what would it look like if parents would just step up and be the parent for a change? Because there's so little of that out there now.
Well, so first off, like so many, and it sounds like a cliche, but every generation gets worse about it, right? But like so many parents now, they want to be the friend, not the parent. They don't want to tell their kids no. They want to redirect them. They want to, but it's just they're too afraid to just have the mentality that every once in a while the answer is just no. And if you question why, is because I effing said so.
Yeah, because I'm the dad.
I love my daughter to death, but I'm here to be her dad first and foremost, to educate her so she can, and she's got a mom too. We don't live together, but we both work towards making sure our kid has life skills and has problem solving skills, that sort of thing. But I see a difference with sometimes when her friends come over, or for those of you who aren't even parents, like I work in retail, and for God's sake, you can judge what a family's like when families bring their kids into your store. Because holy crap, sometimes they walk in the door and they forget that they actually have kids, and they just let them use it as a playground. You talk about manners. You can tell who's a decent parent by how they let their kids just fly off the handle and be a little ass in the store.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I had that thought just not long ago at my work too, is is we had a day where it seemed like everybody that came in that day brought a kid with them that refused to listen. And, in a couple cases, it's not necessarily all the kids' fault. I mean, there was, what were they, 3 and 4-year-old boys or 4 and 5-year-old boys or something like that. I mean, you can't expect a kid that young to sit and be quiet and not have anything to do. I understand. Right. So all of a sudden they find out, oh, there's a sliding door. I can run in front of it and make it open. This is a cool toy. I get it. It's entertaining. It's not the end of the world. And, I try to remember to let most of that stuff slide. But again, that those kids, mom she was about at the end of her rope, just trying to get those boys to behave while they were in there. I mean, she was doing her best. They're boys. She knows she's a boy mom. She gets it.
But it sounds like she was trying. I'm talking about the parents walked in, and all of a sudden they walk in, they forget they have kids. Like if they don't even try to. On,
we had another family that came through with some little kids that just, I mean, they came in, and one of the first things out of the mouth was, talking about how naughty the kid is and stuff like that, and I'm thinking, well, whose fault is this? I mean, who's raising the kid? And there was, I think it's a family ordeal where there's, multiple family members in the house or helping, raise the kids and stuff, which is great normally, but at least one of them needs to step in and be an authority figure and say, listen, you're going to mind. And I see this time and again, and I don't have to be, I don't have to raise young humans of my own to understand how the human mind works a little bit. And there's so many kids out there that I see of all ages in my store and in my just people that I know in my life. There's a kid out there saying, hey, doesn't anybody love me enough to tell me no? Nobody's doing it. Why doesn't anybody love me enough to stop me from doing something wrong?
Well, and Travis, as a teacher, probably sees this. I know, Travis, you don't have children, but
yeah,
my God, you can probably tell how many kids in your class have an active parent in their life and which ones don't, just based on their behavior.
If the kids know that there's going to be some sort of accountability that's going to be held on them, when they get home with mom and dad, or there's going to be consequences, then that really has a lot to do with their behavior. You do see that quite a bit. And again, it could be one of those things like you said, and if nobody's never told them no, or nobody's ever held them accountable, how do you think they're going to act? I mean, it doesn't take long to figure that out. If they don't have that kind of structure at home, regardless of whether it's single parent family or not, if it's not there, then it's going to be reflected in their attitude towards life.
Well, and I've said this many times. I mean, kids need to have a mother figure and a father figure. It doesn't have to be necessarily their mom and their dad, and those figures don't have to live in the same home. But every kid in their life needs a female to look up to and a male to look up to. And anybody that wants to argue with me is wrong. Somebody's got to step in and be that role. And if it's your kid and you're not willing to step in and be that role, somebody will. It may be somebody a lot closer to their age that they look up to, an older brother or a friend's older brother or older sister, or what have you, who may not have been raised to make the best decisions, but somebody's going to influence that kid. I think it should be the parents. I think it's the parents' responsibility. If you make the kid, you should raise the kid to make good choices. But that, of course, we know that doesn't happen. I had great parents, and I still chose to make bad choices. I mean, they raised me how to make good choices, and I still didn't always listen. So it's not always on the parents.
But you knew right from wrong, and you wouldn't go out of your way to disrespect them. You wouldn't disrespect them because you knew there'd be consequences. It was the same thing for me at home. I would be held accountable for my behavior. If it wasn't with mom, it's when he would get home, or it'd be on the weekends when dad was working.
I'll go a little further. I'll tell you this: like some parents, one of those parents shouldn't be the person influencing their kid. Like my dad, for example, the best thing my mom ever did was get me and my sister away from my dad. He was a degenerate gambler. He lost everything we had. If I'd have followed his example, who knows where I'd be right now. Now my grandpa stepped in, and he was but I'm saying it's there's a difference between being a father and being a dad biologically, So it's not always the parent's not always the person that. No, ideally, yes, the parents are the person, but some people aren't cut out for the job. I'll tell you that right now.
Statistics will show you that if mom and dad are still together and raise the kids in the same home, those kids tend to do better in life in every aspect. I mean, that's just a thing that happens. That's not always the case. That's not always possible. And
sometimes it can be a detriment. It can.
It can be a detriment, and sometimes it's better for the kid overall, for mom and dad to not live in the same house. And I know that some of you out there listening, and even some of you here in the panel have been through. There's nobody on this panel now that hasn't been divorced, so we've all been there, right?
Role models.
Well, me being the most recent one, what I can say, John, is
But the fact of the matter is that Defense Dad, you and your ex are still both taking an active role in your daughter's life, and that's admirable, because you guys knew that you weren't gonna be able to make it work for each other, but you do everything that you can. Both of you do everything that you can for her, and that's cool. And I love the fact that you'll give her credit, even though I don't know. You don't really talk about her much, so I don't really know your opinion of her. And that we're not going to get into it right now. I'm not going to put you on the spot. But the fact that
my blood pressure is high enough as it is, I don't need to keep talking about that part of it. So I don't talk about it too much.
No, you're right, and it's nobody's business. But the fact that you'll give her credit where it's due, I mean, that's speaks a lot to your character too. And that's being a role model for the kid, saying that hey, even though mom and dad aren't together anymore, when there's a parent who refuses to run the other parent down, says more. Whatever you say about your ex says more about you than it does about them. Whatever you say about anybody else tells me more about you than it does about them. So
and we make a conscious effort not to, at least in front of our kid, say bad things about the other person. So
well, exactly right. And I'm sure my exes have some choice things to say about me, and we didn't have any kids together. So, I mean, they can say whatever they want. Whatever. If I valued their opinion, I'd not be divorced. But
if you want to see some changes with America's youth, get the government out of our lives.
Oh, yeah.
Get the government out of our lives. Family court destroys parenting. They destroy families, but they destroy parenting. The school system, the public school system, destroys parenting. Child Protective Services destroys parenting. There are people in the government at all kinds of levels that seem to think that they know more than you, whether they have kids or not, whether they live where you live, whether they're in the same social economical class as you, whether they have the same values as you, and values can branch out into so many different things. And they want to tell you how to raise your kids, how to live your life, and what you can and can't do. Yeah. And that is part of the destruction of the nuclear family, right? The man, the woman, and the kids, and the picket fence, and the dog, and all this stuff, right? The American dream. The family courts treat the children like livestock. Get rid of child support. Make it go away. You're going to stop seeing all of these women have 8 kids with 8 different guys to get the money. Because they don't love their kids. They want the money. And the courts force it. Then you got the dad who has 60% of his income gone. And he's supposedly supposed to pay for his own place to live now, pay for the house that she's still living in with her boyfriend, and pay all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And then somehow or another have the energy and money to do something with the kids in his off time, what little bit of off time he gets with the kids. It's like, now, wait a minute, I'm paying for everything, and I only get the kids one weekend a month and one Wednesday a month or something. It's like, no, how about this? Whoever pays, gets to have the kids more. Yeah. Duh, right? Or something like that. So get rid of it. Child Protective Services, they false reports all the time, right? And after they find out that it's a false report, they don't go back and prosecute the a-hole who made the false report. That's BS. And I know people say, well, if we did that, then people wouldn't report anything. Fine. Because I can tell you, as somebody who's had Child Protective Services called on them more than once, and every time it was false. And every single time I was furious. And they even told me who did it. And they're not allowed to do that, but they did it anyhow. I can tell you that talking to some other people that have had similar situations, it's BS that these other people aren't held accountable. Mm-hmm. If it's a real case of neglect, brave people will stand up because they know that they're going to go in there and they're going to see it. It's going to be blatantly obvious. But the people who want to do this for revenge or to get you in trouble or embarrass you or make you look bad in front of your kids or whatever, nothing happens to them. And that's BS. You shouldn't have a judge or a counselor or some other government appointed person tell you how to raise your kids and how to live your life. And I understand there'll be people out there going, but what about the kids that need this? Or what about the kids? It's such a small amount when you really look at the real thing. And then you got the school system. You got the school system sending out emails about how you should parent your kids. Not we've had a problem with this or a problem with that. Actually sending you, this is how you parent your kids. Or you have the teachers telling you this in the parent-teacher conferences, not complaining about little Sally's foul mouth. I'm saying actually tell you how to parent your kids. Or other situations where they're saying, oh, well, your kid this and your kid that. It's like, whoa, you don't get to decide this. I am the parent. I understand people want the schools locked up during the day so some a-hole doesn't go in there and commit a crime. But as a parent, you ain't locking me out. I'll drive right through that front door if I have to get my kid out of there. I pay for that building. I pay your salary. I pay your pension. You work for me. You are not locking my kid in there and telling me I can't go in there because you can't protect them. That is BS. There are so many things that the government does to interfere. So many things that they do to encourage couples to split up, to encourage one person to lie about the other to get the kids and then use the kids as a bargaining chip, as leverage. And then when this sort of thing happens, you'll have her say, well, when you have the kids, you take them out to eat and you take them to the movies and you buy them stuff and you buy their love. And I have to compete with that. And it's like, well, look, lady, I get to see them 3 afternoons a month. What am I supposed to do? Sit there and just stare at the wall with them? So no, that's what you're going to do as the dad who isn't allowed to parent your kids. And then you got her going, well, how do I compete with this? Hey, I know. I'll give them everything they want and not say no to anything. I'll be their friend. Or even worse, she's lonely. She's lonely, and now the kids are the surrogate husband. Oh, I'm lonely and I don't have a man. So you know what? I'm just going to be friends with my kids and they're going to be the person that keeps me company and I'll give them whatever they want. I'll give them whatever. And anybody out there's going, that doesn't happen. Apparently you've never lived that sort of life. I can tell you that there are probably more people out there that have seen everything I've said or experienced it, lived it, than the people who have their head in the sand and say, no, we need to do this and we still need to have that. And no, get rid of all of it. The government needs to stay out of our lives and then let us parent our kids our way. Plain and simple. When I pay your salary, you do what I say. It's not the other way around.
Well, and that's just it, though. They clear back in the 60s, they started to incentivize single-parent households, which is why we have slums in the inner cities, which is why we have the projects and everything else, and why there is a statistical rise in single parent families and dads who aren't around in those types of neighborhoods because they've been incentivized to not do that. You'll get more money if you don't marry your baby daddy, or if you've got 6 kids by 8 different men, or however that works. You get all kinds of federal aid and state aid and everything else. So yeah, it's terrible. Couple comments I want to get out here real quick. Blitz said, I think we lost sight of it taking a village to raise a child, which is true, especially on the accountability level. Now, if you're a guy and talk to a kid, you're running a real risk of being called. Oh, I lost that other comment. Well, there's all kinds of things that you'll get accused of being or called, and none of them are good. And that's, well, it also, of course, depends on how you talk to the kid. So, that's another thing that needs to be taught is how you talk to people. Things that you can say to kids, things that you can't say to kids, things that should never be said to a kid those are taboo subjects. They can get us kicked off YouTube and places, depending on what you say about them and how. I don't have to worry about it. A little channel like mine, nobody's going to hear it. But yeah, people get silenced all the time because they say stuff on social media about, this, that, and the other. And then Hillbilly Up said his grandpa would say to someone, do you want to whip your kid or you want me to? And just laugh about it. And yeah, unfortunately, that'd be nice.
And then the kid would shut up and do what he's supposed to do. He's like, oh my God.
Well, back, in our day,
you got the whooping. And once you got the whooping, you realized you wouldn't do it again. Yeah.
It didn't matter if mom and dad were around or not. If there was an adult, there's a chance we got our butt beat.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
And if my
uncles or
friend's dad,
grandparents or aunts, whatever, man.
if my friend's dad or my granddad or whoever had turned me over their knee because I was doing something, especially if they told me not to do it and I kept doing it, and then I faced the consequences, they'd be the ones to tell my folks about it, and my folks would say, "Good, thanks for doing that."
Oh yeah.
I had a family court judge look at me and say, "You and your wife cannot spank your kids, but your ex-wife and their stepdad can." And I go, "Okay, look, I'm not beating my kids, okay? And if I did spank them, it would be a rare thing. But I can tell you, as somebody who used to get a spanking when I was a kid, that works. All right? The first time my mom grounded me, in my mind, I'm going, that's it? All you can do is ground me? Oh, this is too easy, right?
In my room with my cable box?
The fear that dad was going to come home after a long day at work and be made the bad guy. He told me later, he goes, "Your mom was making me the bad guy." And then I had to experience it later, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is what it feels like. The fear, waiting for dad to come home. And he hit harder than mom, okay? But never put me in the emergency room or anything else like that. But it did give me fear and respect. But that was enough. That was my incentive. When they said do it, I did it. And when they said do it, they weren't doing anything other than being parents. They were trying to teach me hard work and responsibility and respect and all the other things that you should be teaching your kids. Now, it's not up to me to tell you how to do it. I can give you ideas or whatever. But when you have a judge saying, you can't touch your own kids, but some other guy can. And one day, my oldest son told me, he goes, "I'm more afraid of mom than you." Because he lied to his mother right in front of me about something I never did to get out of trouble himself, threw me under the bus. And he had the judge's blessing to do it. And it's like, how in the F am I supposed to raise my kids when the government is telling me? And believe me, that judge had no problem going, "You can get in the box. You can do what I say, you can get in the box." The box is a little place over to the side in the courtroom where the bailiffs will take you down the elevator and across the street to the county jail. So you either do what the judge says or you're going into the box. Well, I never went in the box. I don't have a criminal record of any sort, and I'm not about to start one for anybody. But when you have a system that is stacked against you that way, how are you supposed to raise young men or boys to be young men and young men to be responsible men?
Boys to be raised to be young men.
No, they don't. They have an agenda.
They very much have an agenda. They want to raise boys to be wimpy little whatever boys are becoming these days. And that's why they've branded masculinity as quote unquote toxic. And we all know that's BS. But how many times have you heard about, we joke about it all the time, toxic masculinity, the new scent from Preferred Stock or whatever. Which, I'd spray that stuff on all day long. If it was an Axe body spray, that's the one I'd buy every time. But that's just it. Is again, if it's really masculine, it's not toxic. And if it is toxic, then it's not masculine, because that's not what masculinity is. But words matter, and they're changing the definition of so many words so fast. I can't even keep up anymore. Apparently we're not in a recession, even though we're in a recession right now too, kids, but that's of a whole different night's topic too. But that's just it, is they're trying to raise the boys to be girls and the girls to be boys, and saying that you can be whatever you want, and it just depends on how you feel when you wake up that day. And if you're a dude and you want to live your life as not a dude, then cool, that's your choice to make. It's not my life to live. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to say anything other than there's dudes and there's girls, and that's it. There's two genders out there. You can live your life how you want to live. And if you're cool to me, and I'll be cool back to you. But I refuse to be told what I have to believe, especially when it's not the truth.
For you guys out there with daughters, I hope there's a few of you out there raising your daughters to be traditional. I don't mean submissive and subservient. What I mean is they can be strong and independent when they need to be strong and independent, but they want a guy to be a guy. We're natural leaders. Women are gravitate towards that. Okay, that's the truth. That's not toxic, man. That's the truth. Women want a guy to take charge and take the lead. All right, and women are attracted to a-holes. Every man has it within them to be a natural born a-hole, and that's what they're attracted to. So just do what your instincts tell you. It doesn't mean you're abusive. That's where the toxic masculinity comes from. Men
Right, that's
do
not
men things
masculine,
in
that's
men ways, and the men speak and all the other stuff without being condescending per se, without being abusive per se, but because one guy one time took it too far, or somebody labeled just being a man as being abusive or toxic or anything else. Now they've said, oh no, you can't do what your instincts, your testosterone,
Yeah.
what you're designed to do by God, it is just not working. And a real woman is going to be attracted to a real man. And I've taught my sons to look for real women. If they see these ones that want to be bossy and all this other stuff, and they're not interested in a guy being, they're not attracted to a guy who is a guy, run, well, walk, really, you don't even have to run. Just don't give her the time of day. And if they start doing certain things, you check them. And if you got to keep checking them, you get the heck out of there. Move on. You don't need her. And these younger men today are realizing, they're watching what happened to their dads in family court. They're watching their dads lose everything. They're watching their dads, stressed out and everything else. And they're seeing it and going, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. Kids are too expensive, and all they're going to do is break your heart. And I don't want to get married to a woman because all she's going to do is take me for half my stuff for 20 years and break my heart. So this younger generation, this is why they hook up. And don't think that the girls are being abused. See, that's just it. They'll say, oh, well, the girls want to hook up just as bad as the boys. Don't think for a second. I was raised, women are virtuous and honorable and all the BS. They're all a bunch of they're garden tools, okay? I'm saying that's what they all really are. But that doesn't mean that all women are bad or all men are bad or whatever. This is just the thing. They want it just as much as guys want it. They have their own quirks and they have their own femininity. Well, nobody's talking about toxic femininity, right? Or feminism or whatever. Well, that's just it. You can be a man and she can be a woman, and you can make it work if the two of you want it to. But if one of you wants to step outside of your role permanently, maybe temporarily, I can understand it, but permanently, because of some movement or because some college professor told you, or a politician, or you saw a movie or read a book or something like that, there's going to be problems. And if that's the case, I would recommend you just get the heck out of that relationship.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of toxic femininity, Blitz says we don't need to send MLRS to Ukraine, just 100 angry Latina moms with large stockpiles of shoes. Beware the chancla.
Or German grandmas.
Or German grandmas.
I'll tell you that. Yep.
German mother-in-law.
Patriot is right, too. He says it's hard to have masculine men as subjects, and that's what they want. They want subjects. They want submissive men, because this is the part of the cycle where they're creating weak men. To the good times have led to the weak men, and now the weak men are leading to the hard times. We're right there. But only the strong men can get us out of the hard times. Well, the quote unquote strong men right now who have the power in the government, they don't want a constitutional republic anymore because there's a limitation on their power. The strong men in government want weak men as subjects because they want to become an oligarchy or eventually some sort of monarchy or whatever it is that they want to be. More than likely an oligarchy, because they've all got pals, they've all got buddies. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody that, number one, isn't smart enough to know the difference, doesn't understand how this nation was born. They don't understand why the Declaration of Independence is the greatest breakup letter of all time. They don't understand why the Constitution is such a groundbreaking, history-making document, and the fact that they even put safeguards into it so that we can change it over time if we need to and make things better, because humans don't always get it right. And we've seen that time and time again where it's been adjusted and tweaked, and that's what they mean by a living document, because it can be tweaked. It's not the end all be all, and they left that out when they developed it. And those kind of men are no longer here, not enough of them anyway, to run this country and to not only run the country, and I don't just mean the elected officials, I mean run the country. The people in power shouldn't be those that are elected to office. They should be the ones that are driving the economy, that are driving industry, that are raising the children, that are teaching the children. People like Travis should be the strong men, the men in power right now. And that's not how it is. And that's not what they want it to be. And so that's exactly why they have to have these weak people, because they don't understand how significant it is to piss away all of the liberty and freedom that was protected by those documents that were put into place 200 and almost 250 years ago now. And not only that, but then they either, not only they don't understand, but they're either apathetic, or they lack the wherewithal, they lack the ability to stop the process. That's what they're looking for, is people who they can railroad into whatever they want this country to become next. That it's not a good thing, whatever they're looking for it to become. And that's, again, imagine what society would look like if we raised our children to, first and foremost, raise them to value themselves. If they value themselves, they'll value their rights, because they'll value their liberties. If they don't think they have value, then they won't believe that their rights have value. And if they don't believe their own rights have value, then why would they care about yours and mine? That's what it comes down to. Raise your daughters to be, how do I say this I'm probably just going to say this the wrong way, because this is what's coming to my mind. Raise your daughters to not wear skimpy outfits all the time. And there may be a time and a place, but teach them how the male mind works. And it's not toxic masculinity for a teenage boy to see a teenage girl showing all that skin and have thoughts that he shouldn't be having go through his head. We're all four dudes. We've all been there, and it's normal. That's a normal thing. Don't shame the boy for the hormones that are coursing through his veins. And don't shame the girl if she never got taught that she has value, because she thinks that her value rests in whether or not he wants to hook up with her. And that's the value that she holds, is not the space between her ears or the space in her heart, but the space between her legs. And she's worth so much more than that. So people with daughters, teach your daughters what they are worth and just how precious and valuable they are. Teach your sons how precious these girls are, and teach your sons how precious and valuable they are, that they are worth so much more. They are valuable for the space between their ears and the space in their hearts. If we did that, they would value each other. They would value all of us. They would value their liberties, and they wouldn't be pushed around. But that's not where we are. So now we have to figure out, well, how do we fix it? How do we stop this train from derailing as it's running at top speed towards the bridge that's out? I mean, we're about to have a major train wreck here in our country, and I don't know how to slow it down now.
It's difficult on an individual scale as a parent, or as two parents, if you actually have that household anymore, to do it. But it's not impossible. I hear people say, oh, you just can't, or just give up, or things like that. And it's like, no, now don't get me wrong. I've had the deck stacked against me. I've had this, I've had that, but I've also had success, and I've actually witnessed it. But one of them's out of the house. He's been out for a couple of years, and not what I expected at all. And he told me one day, he goes, don't think I didn't listen to you. You might have thought I wasn't listening. I was listening to you. I balance it. I'm not a helicopter parent. I'm not one of these people that's up my kid's butt constantly. I know people like that. I don't get that, but that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. I'm also not the absent parent. People tell me all the time, oh, you work all the time because you love money more than your kids. It's like, fill in the blank here with a swear word that you won't let me say on your show. You don't know me. Okay, don't ever accuse me of not loving my kid because I work a lot. I work a lot because I love my kid, and I still find time for my kids. My kids understand what it takes in order to provide for a family, and I set an example by going to work every day and working hard and doing things like that. But my kids also get my time when they want it, when they need it, and when they get it, that I try to give them valuable lessons. I also converse with my wife. Okay, we have no daughters. I said, if we had daughters, I'd be coming to you all the time because I wouldn't know what to do. I didn't have any sisters growing up, none of that crap, right? But there are times where she wants to coddle the boys, and they're in their teens, or they're grown men moved out of the house. And I'm like, no, it's tough love, and it's, you want them to be men. Do you want them to be like me, or do you want them to be some simp? Well, I don't want them to be some simp. Then just back off and let me do things. And every now and then I gotta give her the hand, right? And we'll have a talk later and be like, this is one of those times where you're going to step in and go, he's not 5 anymore. When he was 5, he needed you more. He's 15, he needs me more. That doesn't mean he's never going to need you again, because moms don't ever want to let go of their kids. This goes right back to the single mom wanting to make friends with them, and not, and instead of, you know, getting a decent man to help raise them, right? And I'm not putting all the blame on women here either, but there is a lot more blame that women need to shoulder that they haven't been. And it's a matter of finding that balance. You can work and pay the bills and still be there to be the parent. You can be the parent and give your kids what they're looking for, what they need, what you think they need, and explain. People will tell me that I don't do enough day to day with my kids, but yet we take these fabulous family vacations. And when we're on vacation, they're trapped in the car with me. And everything we do, everywhere we go, everything, there's a lesson. And that's what my older son was trying to tell me. He misses that sort of time, and he wants the same thing with his kids. Now, don't tell me I did a bad job when I got a 21-year-old kid telling me this, who isn't even planning to get married. But if he had kids, this is what he would want.
Now, let me just clarify. A little bit ago, you said sometimes, your wife wants to coddle the boys or whatever, and you have to give her the hand. Now, before I start getting emails or people calling in about the show or whatever, you're talking about like talk to the hand, right? Not like, back of the hand.
Oh, you mean lay my goon hand down on her because she ran her mouth? I mean, I tell her all the time, if I ever hit you, if I ever really hit you, you would not believe how strong I am. You don't realize that one day, bang zoom to the moon. No, like if I ever really wanted to hurt you, I could kill you with my bare hands. She goes, I know. And I go, and you still tempt fate. She goes, yep. I like girls like that. She's feisty. She's feisty, but yeah, she knows I could, but she also trusts me. She also knows that I wouldn't, but no, when I give her the hand, it's the hand or the finger, the zip, but even if it was the goon hand, that's between me and her, but no, we don't do that. But I've told her that before. I've actually, and that's the kind of relationship we have where I can actually say this to my wife. Some guys are like, I can't believe you said that's your wife. Why not? If I can't tell her whatever the heck I want to tell her, why am I married to her? And this is what my kids see. And hopefully they see this and they're able to say, all right, I want to find a woman that is open to communication, even bizarre, odd communication, because as long as you have that open communication, you're going to have a better relationship. When you do, you can raise kids that have values and that you're both on board and raising them. And then that's our future. All right. But if we want to live in this where we all can't say anything to each other and we can't say what we really think and how we really feel and we can't we got to censor everything and everything's toxic and everything's politically correct. And in my house, we're not politically correct. But when we leave the house, I told my kids, you tell those idiots at the school whatever they want to hear in order to pass, because you're going to have to do that when you go to a job. And I've had people blast me for that. Oh, you're not raising your kids. Believe me, outside of school, my kids absolutely will say what they really feel. And what's funny is I'm listening to my teenage son on Discord with his 15-year-old friends, and they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying what they really feel and what they really think and how stupid this is and how this doesn't make any sense. And I'm going, there's hope for our future.
Yes.
Because they're independent thinkers. It doesn't matter if they agree with me or disagree. They made their own choice. They used some critical thinking. That is something we aren't teaching our kids, critical thinking.
If I'd been thinking soon enough this week, I would have found a couple younger people to come in and actually show that there is hope. There are some good ones out there. Like I said, I think about she's been on the show before, the NFOA president, Trish Harold. She was with us a couple weeks ago on the show. She's got a daughter who she was raised to be a strong, independent woman. She can be, I don't know, I don't mean this in a bad way. She can be kind of mouthy. And I've heard stories every now and then from, back in the high school days. She's out of high school now, but back in her high school days, she'd come home and be like, Mom, just in case you get a phone call or an email, and her mom would be like, what'd you do now? And she would explain the situation. And all she was doing was literally thinking for herself, asking questions of the teacher to try to get a better understanding or to explain that, this doesn't make sense to me. Not like I don't understand the concept, but I don't understand why the world is like this, or why you think that this is the way when I see the world differently, something like that. Questioning the teacher. It's a good thing. And I don't want to say that I encourage always questioning authority or challenging authority, although that has its place, of course. but I mean, you should be able to question your teacher without fear of recourse, without fear that mom and dad are going to get an email saying, hey, the kid was acting up in class, just because the kid can think for herself or himself and came to a different conclusion than what the textbook said or the teacher said or whatever. I would think that would be encouraged and healthy. I understand it's not. I understand that in some teachers' classrooms, thinking for yourself is they try to beat that out of you, proverbially speaking. And I know, Travis, not every teacher's like that. And in fact, I know that most of them out there still aren't. But we all know that happens. There are teachers out there that do that. And I think that when you get into colleges and universities, that you see a lot more of it, for sure.
But it's funny when you hear your son and his two friends talking about Mr. So-and-so and his liberal BS, and how can they expect anybody to believe this lie when the history book says right here, and I'm like, oh, there's hope. There's so much hope.
That's awesome.
But we could use a lot more teachers like Travis. And I understand you got a job to do, just like I'm at my job, right? There's certain things I can't say here or I'm going to lose my job. Right. And I don't want somebody to lose their job because they're trying to push their agenda one way or the other. So I get that. But there are clever ways to work within your confines to be able to have an objective course and still pass the kids without indoctrinating them or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just for the record, the subject area I teach, those kinds of discussions don't typically come up in class. I just want to say that right now. But I've said this before, John, it's not my place to put my personal opinion out there in front of the kids when there's a debate. That's not what I'm hired to do. It's not my place. It's my place to model being a good citizen. Okay. It's my place to model good manners, good behavior, accountability. Right. But when it comes to a debate or a discussion, the influence I could have over the kids over a subject area that they really need to be able to find their own answers on themselves, however they want to. That's what their thing should be, not the teacher. So
you don't put your own, you don't insert your own opinions and your own worldview and belief system in there. But when a debate comes up in your class, and granted, I understand,
which again, it doesn't really because of my subject area. I mean, there could be some discussions about things,
Let's say you overhear something in the hallway, something like that. There's something going on, and it's not a heated debate; it's an honest discussion. Do you ever have a chance to just like ask open-ended questions, and not insert yourself, but just kind of moderate and try to get both sides thinking for themselves? Did you ever get
honestly, a lot of the times it's like with the parents in discussion, like parent-teacher conferences. That's where a lot of the times that'll come up. Well, why are they teaching this? Why are they doing this? Not necessarily something in my class, just like, why is the school doing this policy? And I'm trying to explain to them from one side of the issue. Well, this is what they're hoping is going to happen, and this is what you might be seeing. I'm just kind of there as the moderator, So
and that's what I'm asking. Like, do you ever encourage the discussions, the debates, and just be like, hey, you guys think about this, and also think about this, and I mean, you're trying to be as objective as you can. I don't know.
Again, I've got to be honest. My subject
do that anymore?
It just doesn't. I don't know, because I'm not in those other classes, so I don't know. Like with what I have, I mean, obviously, I want kids to take a whole worldview on something, to look at multiple sides of an issue, So, I mean, I can't, like I said, it's not the kind of class that I teach where controversial issues ever come up. If a kid wanted to talk to me about something, my parents are ripping on me for this, or my parents want me to go to the school, what do you think? I'm like, well, let's look at the issue from, the parental side versus your side. I'm not going to say, well, I think you should do this. I don't, my place is like, well, I think maybe you should speak with a counselor because they can show you the courses you need to take. Or I think you should speak with this teacher because they teach the class. I try to keep neutral because I don't want to be that teacher that's on the news that goes viral pushing his agenda. That's not what I do.
And that's just it. And I mean, I remember having teachers when I was growing up in school where, I'd say something and the teacher wouldn't automatically take my side or my parents' side on any topic, but they would say, well, why do you think your parents feel this way or tell you that? And just they would try to help me see not only my own side of the debate. I mean, I'm focused on something right here, and I can't see anything that's out past my hand right in front of my face. And they would help me kind of take that step back and look more objectively. And I really appreciate the teachers that would do that. And they wouldn't tell me a thing. All they would do is ask me questions.
Yeah,
And
if anything ever comes up in terms of religion or politics, I'm like, guys, I go, it's not my place to tell you how to think at all. And I'm like,
Right.
and that's why we typically don't host discussions on religion or politics in my classroom, because it's not what the curriculum is. That's not what I do.
Yeah, that's not what
you know. Not that I couldn't help if there's a discussion going on in class about some policy, what are my thoughts on it?
Mm-hmm.
I'll just try to explain it from like what the rules say and why we're doing it, what we're hoping to accomplish from it. But I'm not going to say, and I think it's a dumb rule. I don't do that. I've seen enough mistakes that other people have made to know better than that. So I can answer Hillbilly Up's question if you want to put that up there.
Yeah, I'll put that back.
I saw you flash it up there for a second.
Hillbilly Up wants to know, as a teacher, what one thing would you tell a parent that would help their kid in school?
Like I said, be there for them and then listen to them. Really, honestly, pay attention to what they're saying and listen to them all the way through. Because a lot of the times, the big thing with parents is the distractions in life, and they just don't listen to what their kids are saying. They don't whether it's a cry for help or they need help with something, or it's not always maybe the best thing to criticize. Listen first and see what they're trying to tell you and communicate with them. Just be there for them is the biggest thing, because they are very alone these days. They're very isolated, even though they're on social media and cell phones. It's amazing how isolated children are just in general. When they go home, put the headphones on, playing games, whatever, just be there for your kids, spend some time with them, try to have a meaningful relationship with them if you can, do the best you can, even if you might be a single parent. So just be there.
Let me give an example of how you can listen to your kids. So earlier I said my older son told me, after he I'm an adult, moved out of the house and been out for a while, don't think I wasn't listening to you all those years. I was listening to him too. Now, I don't go into my kid's room every night when I come home from the factory and bug them. Well, sometimes I do, just to bug them. But when I bug them, that's where we'll sit and talk. And sometimes we'll set up for a long time and talk, and sometimes it's just a short talk and, yeah, Dad, everything's fine, right? Well, one of the times I talked to my older son, and he said today in civics class, they brought up the Second Amendment, and I was the only one in the class who wouldn't side with the teacher that we need to get rid of guns. He said I was the only one who believed in the Second Amendment, and they were making fun of me. They kept calling me school shooter. I said, and the teacher allowed this? Yep, he allowed it. And what did you do? I just stood there and took it. At that point, I knew my older son was starting to learn critical thinking and starting to form his own opinions. Now, you might say, well, he just stood there and took it. All right, if he had fought back, whether I mean physically or just verbally, he could have gone to the office, he could have been suspended, expelled, whatever. He let it go by. The next day was a different subject, and everybody moved on. But he got teased for the whole day calling school shooter. Now, the irony is that I've got an arsenal in my house. He could have been that guy, right? He could have gone back the next day and killed all of them. But he didn't, and it wasn't even a thought in his head. Why? Because I raised him right. One of the very first things I did with my sons when I took them out the first time to shoot guns is I demonstrated how powerful these things can be, the exact same way they demonstrated to us in boot camp for all the people who'd never shot a gun before. They showed what it could do. You take a water jug, a 1-gallon water jug, and shoot it at point blank range. This is what a bullet does to a human skull. And that is an eye-opener for somebody who's never shot a gun before, okay? Mm-hmm. Simple stuff like that, teaching them firearm safety, teaching them respect, explaining the history, explaining why I go to these rallies. Why is Dad on YouTube? Why does Dad, wear the Michigan Open Carry shirt and all the other crap, right? Why do I carry a gun while I walk the dog? All this. And he got to understand. Now, I always told the kids, if this isn't going to be your life, it isn't going to be your life. But if you value your freedom, understand this one law protects all the others. So without it, all the others fall. And he understood that by the time he was in high school, and he stood up for it, but he was smart enough to know when to back off. And at that point, I was proud of him, and I said, I'm not going to be as worried about him as I thought. Then later on, some of the other things, his actions spoke a lot louder than his words, not necessarily with the Second Amendment thing, but just how he developed into a young man, an independent, hardworking, ethical young man, and started to tell me values. So the first time he voted, he didn't vote because of the Second Amendment. That was his secondary reason. His main reason he went to vote was because he didn't want taxes to go up. I'm like, this kid's thinking for himself. There's a way to do it without smothering your kid. There's a way to do it without forcing and indoctrinating. Your kids are going to be your kids no matter what, but they're not carbon copies of you. They are going to do things you don't agree with. They are going to take paths in their life that you are not going to want to see them take or do, and maybe you can discourage some of this stuff or use tough love. If they do something that openly defies the values you raised them with, then you don't pay for the wedding, okay? Or whatever. But the whole point being is that you can listen to them and you can be there to simply say, you did the right thing, son, and this is why. It's as simple as that.
Well,
That's
and
all it takes.
there's a huge line between son or daughter, I love you and I support you, but I refuse to enable you. I mean, that there's a huge difference between support and enabling. And I think a lot of people today don't know the difference. And I see a lot of parents that they think the only way to support their kid is to enable their kid. And they don't understand, again, that when you don't set clear boundaries, then, and look, there's people that can set boundaries and require, and I'm talking adults now, adults who can set boundaries, and then they have the strength to require others to respect the boundaries that they've set, are rare. We know a lot, and those are the people that get, we accuse them of being a-holes or Karens or whatever sometimes, but that's just it. They have established boundaries, they've set them, and now they expect you to respect their boundaries. And we don't teach kids early enough in life that there's a boundary. I love you, I'm never going to stop, I'll never unlove you, you'll never do anything to make me not love you, but there are things that I refuse to enable you on, and it's because I love you that I'm not going to help you go down this road that I don't agree with, or I've been down that road and I know what's at the other end or whatever. We see a lack of parents doing that. And I know that I've come down on teachers for this before, but it starts in the house. It starts with the parents or whoever's raising the kid. I say parent, not necessarily meaning the egg and sperm donors, but the parents, the people that raise the kid, whatever the relationship is otherwise. That, again, we don't want to teach, or we shouldn't want to. We don't need to teach these kids what to think. We just need to teach them how to think. And like Squib said, yeah, I mean, we've all been there. Most of us have at least one parent or have had at least one parent before. And we know that we make decisions sometimes that disappoint them. It's not the decision they would have liked us to make. Right. And those of you that are raising human beings of your own, you know that feeling too, that sometimes they're going to make decisions that you don't agree with, or not the decision that you wanted them to make, but you also understand the fact that they have to make the decisions for themselves. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is let them make a mistake and learn from it instead of trying to insulate them from that mistake, right? But that's what kids need. We've all been there. We've all had to deal with.
My older son buys a BMW. I'm telling him, don't do it. He's already sink a couple $1,000s into this thing.
Remember, Squid, the brain's not fully formed until they're 30.
I guess, so I don't know, whatever.
He has to replace the intake on that thing. He doesn't know.
I just sat back. I go, don't ask me, because I ain't got the tools to fix this thing.
Yep.
I mean, whatever it is. But yeah, that's just it. There's parents that won't do the tough love because they don't want to see their kid hurt or fall. Now, I'm not talking about have the kids fall so they end up in the emergency room. I'm talking about actually step back and let them fail, because that's a lesson that's going to stay with them for the rest of their life. And there are people that just don't want to. And there's nothing wrong with wanting more for your kids than what you had. All right. Your dad and mom worked their ass off to put you through college. So now you're going to put your kids through college, and they're going to put their kids through college. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Mm-hmm. But when you were brought up with certain kinds of values by those hardworking parents, you can pass those on to your kids. And you're sure, over time, things are going to get diluted. My kids do not have it as difficult as I have it or had it. But I do keep elements of that in my parenting. My parents were raised by people who survived the Depression. And they passed some of that on to me. And I passed some of that on to my kids. And if my kids ever do have kids, and I'm the grandparent, okay, I still am going to be around, hopefully, if my health holds out, that I can still pass that on. There are things you can do with a grandparent or as an uncle or an aunt or whatever it is, right? Or even a cousin in certain cases, that you can pass on stuff that is useful, that is going to help raise a productive person who will think for themselves without converting them or coercing them or any of that stuff. It's instilling values is not a difficult thing to do if you set the example. If you work hard, your kids might see that and say, I don't want to work that hard to make the same amount of money, so I'm going to go to college. Or I can do what dad did to take care of my family. If you have a good relationship with your spouse and your kids see that, they're going to look for that sort of thing. If you have a terrible relationship, they might seek out terrible relationship, and one right after the other, who knows? but there's a lot of things that your kids, positive and negative, get from just watching you. And you don't always realize that. I can tell you, my kids have, they got foul mouth like their mom and I. That's definitely something they picked up from us. We're going to take the blame or credit, depending on how you look at it, for that. And some people might say, well, that, I don't want that for my kids. Well, that's how you raise your kids. So don't swear around your kids. But don't tell me that in my own house, I can't swear around my kids. And I try to back off, because there are so many people out there that want to tell other people how to raise their kids. And I don't want to do that, but I'm kind of fed up with your idiot kids affecting my life and then eventually affecting my kid's life. When I was saying that thing about my older son had access to something where he could have committed a crime, and it was never a thought in his head. And to this day, it still isn't a thought in his head, because I raised him right to value life and not to throw his life away over what, an insult? I mean, these kids today, they don't know how to handle that, and mom and dad aren't there, or mom and dad enable it, like you were saying. How hard is it to teach your kids simple things like to value human life, or to be able to handle adversity? If you get knocked down, pick yourself up. Don't wait for somebody to do it. Do it yourself. It's because they don't want them to feel bad. Or
if you look at the kids who do decide that they're going to take a firearm into a school or something like that. I mean, I can't think of one in my memory where it wasn't somebody who didn't feel valued, right? They weren't those people that did that. They weren't taught that they were valuable, that life has value, and that they were valuable. They didn't get that at home. Therefore, number one, they didn't value the lives of the people who they killed. Number two, they didn't value their own life, and they thought that the only validation they were going to get was if they made a name for themselves, and also typically they were bullied, henpecked, what have you, and it is the only way that they knew how to lash out. And they took it too far, obviously, because they were never taught even how the proper way to vent, right? So all of a sudden, everything comes to a head. There's no pressure valve, and this is what happens. You get that explosion where all of a sudden, now people are dead because of it. But I mean, just in the last couple of years, the instances that we've had, these are people who either, if it's a school, their fellow students, their peers, they were outcasts. Right. It's never the football quarterback that goes and does this kind of stuff, because they get validation in their life. It's the undervalued kid, the kid that doesn't understand what they're worth, because they were never taught that at home, and they don't have any friends that are teaching them that and affirming that. So the only affirmation and validation they get is knowing that the whole world's going to know their name, at least for a couple days or a week or whatever that CNN runs it nonstop. But at least they got to be famous. At least they got to be somebody, even if it's Andy Warhol's 15 minutes of fame, right? So that's what happened.
And you gotta. Sorry, I'm trying to cut you off here, but you gotta listen to your kids too, because kids go through stages, right? Like my daughter officially became a teenager this summer, and she's in that stage where she doesn't really know. She got all this emotion going through. She doesn't really know how to express things. Like, she's just at the stage where everything's either not fair or stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when a kid says like something like that, you can't just dismiss it. You're like, okay, so tell me what happened. Why is it unfair? Why is it stupid? Tell me what happened. And you got to have the wherewithal to explain to them, like, okay, sometimes what they tell you really wasn't fair, but sometimes, okay, now you're just being a snot. Like, what happened should have happened, but you got to listen to them. You got to kind of, you like it or not, whether it may not be what you want to do, but you got to talk some of that stuff through with them. Sometimes you just got to say, okay, you got to suck it up. What you did was wrong. You got in trouble. That's fine. Or if it is a situation where something happened at school and something truly wasn't fair, then as a parent, you also got to weigh, like, hey, well, do you teach them to stand up for themselves, which you should, but you got to do it in a way, or do you go talk to the teacher, but then you cause problems with them for the school a bit?
Right. How do you? It
starts with listening to your kid, not just dismiss it as, oh, shut up, go to your room, stop complaining.
How do you show your kid that you have their back without going and making things worse for them down the road, right? Yep. But the kid needs to know that mom and dad or whoever, somebody has their back. That's all it comes down to. These kids that are committing these crimes, they don't think anybody has their back. Why are gangs so attractive?
They
Nobody's
don't.
got
They
my
also
back.
don't have a parent there to set the example. They don't have a parent there to tell them, look, you might not see what's going to happen next. You might not know. And at your age, I was your age once. Everything's 5 minutes in front of my face. Now that I'm older, everything's 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years, 10 years in front of my face. Okay. You're not there yet. You're not going to understand. When you get to be my age, you suddenly will, and you'll be creeped out because you're going to start thinking like me. Don't worry. You don't understand right now, but when it happens, you'll pick up the phone and call me and be like, Dad, you're not going to believe this, but, and then you tell them, do you want to throw away your lives for these a-holes? These people that bullied you, these people. I was a kid that was alienated. I was a kid that was the outcast, the outsider. I was a kid that was bullied. I was a kid that didn't fit in. And I had access to my grandpa's stuff, and I never did anything. But I will tell you this. After all of that crap was over, after I got through it and all that, I went out and made my own life. I made my own life. And one of the best moments I ever had, I guess it's the revenge I got on all the kids that ever picked on me in high school. Because I came home on leave one time. And every time I come home on leave, I'd wear my uniforms wherever I went. I came home on leave one time, and there was a high school basketball game happening. And one of the popular kids, in my high school, basketball was a thing, not football, right? And all the popular kids were on the basketball team. And the team captain was a kid in my grade, and he was a bully. And all of him and his brothers were all on the basketball team and all team captains, and the whole family, they were wealthy and snotty brats and everything else, right? His younger brother was the team captain, and he was leading the team against Southwest Detroit. And there was some guy at this Detroit high school named Chris Webber, who everybody said was going to be in the NBA one day. And I said, well, I want to go out and, see how this guy's brother plays, or the younger team, these kids that were freshmen when I was play against this guy who's going to be in the NBA. So I showed up to the gym in my dress blues, and I opened up the door to walk into the gym, and it looked like a scene out of a movie. Everybody stopped and looked at me. Everybody in both sets of bleachers. Chris Webber was coming right at me with the ball. I didn't know who he was at the time, right? Hey, coming at me right with the ball, and he stopped and froze. Everybody around him froze, and they all looked at me. And I almost had to look behind me to see what was going on. And I realized I'm walking into my dress blue uniform. And it was like, wow, I've never had this sort of attention in my life. It was a cool moment, right? So then I see the kids. They used to be on the basketball team, the ones that used to bully me and stuff, all the popular kids, all the a-holes. And I go walking over, and one of them goes, you didn't come here to beat us all up, did you? Right? I'm like, no, I just come over to talk or whatever. And then one guy asked me if I'm still a virgin, which was an awful rude thing to say. And I'm like, dude, I'm married. What have you guys been doing? Oh, they've all been hanging out. None of them are in a relationship. Yep. None of them got a job. None of them are in college. None of them are, it's like, I live in another state. Left town. I live in another state. I've been traveling all over the country, taking training, and I'm about to deploy overseas, and that was so would you rather have a moment like that, or would you rather go into the school for an hour of terror and either take your own life, get taken out by the cops, or spend the rest of your life in prison? The choice is yours. And I'm not saying you have to join the military and have a dress uniform in order to be cool. You could be the doctor that cures cancer. You could be the next big movie star. You could be in a band. You could raise some really, cool kids that, to be a better parent than your parents. There are so many different things that you can do. And then this is a conversation you have to have with your kids. If they feel like they don't amount to anything, or that they're never going to be popular, or nobody's ever going to like them, or they're never going to have their 50 minutes of fame, they don't have to commit a crime to get that. They just have to find their own way in life and be a good person.
They have to figure out what they're good at, and then they have to work at it. And that's the other, that goes back to, again, they're not taught the value of putting in the effort. They want all the benefits, but they don't want to put the effort in to get the benefits. I want the college education, but I don't want to have to pay back the loans I took out to get my college education. I want to, kids today don't want the entry-level job. They don't want to flip burgers at McDonald's. They want to be the manager of McDonald's. They want the job that comes after this job, but they don't want this job first, and that you can't get to that job without doing this job or several jobs. You can't just walk in and say, hey, I want to be the manager and I want to make all the decisions and call all the shots. No, you've got to start at the bottom. They're not.
That's their parents not setting the proper expectations, though. I'll say this too. And I'm not trying to use it as a crutch, but it's tougher being a parent. So when I was married, I have a stepson, and he's 27. Some of the stuff that kids are going through now, it's tougher being a parent now, 10 years after I went through the first time, than it was then. For example, like weird situation, right? You have to teach your kids how to deal with bullies different than we did, because
you can't.
If you had a bully when I was a kid, you just sucked it up. You got in the fight and you put up with it, and you either got respect or you didn't. Now you can't do that. In 2021, last year, my daughter's in middle school, and it's come to the point. Society has got to the point where there's a kid in a wheelchair there that's a school bully, and he just makes kids miserable. And I didn't know how to advise her from it. And I found out later, like the kid, I don't know what he has, but his life expectancy is really not even to graduate high school, right? But he was making my daughter miserable day in and day out, like just being a little jerk. And I finally had to explain to her that you just got to stay away from him, because no matter how you approach it, you're not going to come out looking like a good person if you make a kid in a wheelchair cry, even if you're just standing up for yourself. I can't imagine that ever happening when I was a kid.
Right.
You know,
that would have been the kid that got picked on, not the kid that did the picking.
I had to explain to her, like, well, think about it. This kid is never going to get out of a wheelchair. His parents probably don't have the wherewithal to come out and to teach him not to be an asshole, because they know his life expectancy is less, so they let him get away with everything.
Yep.
But like that's this day and age, that's how someone could become a bully. That never would have happened before. So
that happened when I was in high school. The one kid who was a bully, he had cancer, and they knew he wasn't going to make it, and the parents gave him everything, and everybody at school just let him get away. The teachers let him get everybody, right? Mm-hmm. And they cut off one of his legs, and he became a bigger bully, and he's just getting closer and closer to death. And every time he bullied me, I what do? Do I knock out the kid with one leg that everybody loves that's dying of cancer? No. But in the back of my head, I said, this asshole's going to die one day. I don't care. And I have no remorse. Hey, I'm not going to remember him fondly. And if that's the way you want to go out, why weren't his parents saying, do you want to be remembered as the bully, or do you want to be remembered as the parents didn't care because they felt guilty because, my son's not going to, all right, I understand that. But you're just going to put parenting on hold and it goes right back to what you were saying, enabling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's just it, because it's easier to give in. It's hard. It's hard to tell your kid no and deal with the fit, right? The tears and all that. It's hard. You have to work harder as a parent to teach them right and wrong than to just give in and give them whatever they want and make them like you.
The other part, dealing with normal bullies, like God forbid you get into a fight in school, because I had a friend, her son was getting his butt just handed to him on the playground, right? He threw up one fight. I think they cracked a couple of his ribs, and he was getting his butt beat. He finally got a punch in to defend himself. He threw one punch after being pummeled on, and he got expelled from school just like the kid who was beaten. I mean, back in my day, if you got into a fight and you stood up to a bully, you might have got an in-school suspension or a day off school, but you didn't get suspended. You didn't get suspended for a week from school. Like, yeah, it's gotten to be where. And again, I feel like we're kind of picking on schools, and I don't mean to, Travis, but schools have their hands tied.
I hear it all the time, dude. I mean, I'm numb to it.
Schools have their hands tied and stuff, so they have to make each person accountable. But
they don't really have their hands tied, because the same thing happened to my older son. Some kid came up to him in the hallway and hit him in the back of the head. So my older son turned around and laid him out. I was proud of them, too. I was so proud of them. And the teachers were right there and didn't do anything about that, as usual. They don't do anything. Then they both get called to the office, and we're told they're both getting expelled. So I get a hold of the assistant principal, because the principal's never available. They're always, off just collecting a check. And I say, look, suspending both kids for 10 days doesn't teach them anything, except that if they want to get out of school for 10 days, just throw a punch. My son defended himself. I raised him to defend himself. I stand beside my son on this one, stand behind him on this one, because he didn't start the fight. I told him, never be a bully. Because if you are, you're going to have to deal with me. But don't take anything from a bully. Don't ever take anything. So you're undermining my parental authority. You see what I mean about the government getting involved? You're undermining my parental authority, and being out of school for 10 days doesn't help the kids. Now, she said, oh, don't worry. They'll get to make up all their work. They didn't get to make up any of it. And I said, I tell you what, you got the other parent's number? Yeah. Call the dad right now and put him on speakerphone. I bet you if I say, hey, how about if we agree to have our son shake hands and walk away and go back to school the next day, how much you want to bet? He says, I'm down with that. She goes, well, I can see your point, but I don't know if I should do it. I go, why? It's speakerphone. It's not like I know who he is or where he lives or anything else. Just man to man, and you're here listening. I guarantee you, if he's a real man, he's going to be like, yeah, I want my son back in school. I want my son back in school. Let him shake hands like men and move past this. And she didn't want to do it. Why? Because she doesn't understand men. Why? Because she's putting female values on young men. This doesn't teach them how to deal with their feelings. It doesn't teach them how to deal with their hormones. It doesn't teach them how to deal with their identity. What it does is it alienates them. I guarantee you, if she had the other dad on speakerphone, he would have agreed with me. I guarantee. And she wouldn't do it. She just kind of lawyered up there, and that's where I get mad. This is where I get mad about the government getting into our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Where I say their hands are tied in some of those situations, though, is think about this. So with these helicopter parents or these parents that won't accept responsibility on their own, if they find out that kid who was getting his butt handed to him through one punch, and they're not going to admit that their kid was the one just pummeling another child. But as soon as they find out their kid got expelled, and if they find out the other kid didn't, they're going on the phone to that administrator. They're raising holy hell. So you can't have a fair situation. Back when I was a kid, if you were the kid getting pummeled and you stopped the fight, you didn't get suspended. The kid who started it and he was beating the crap out of you did.
Yeah. Yep. Which is the way it still should be, but yeah, it's not.
But the whole point is, I was trying to say, I actually said this to her. I said, you are an educational institution. I understand it's academics, but these kids, they're developing their sense of identity, their sense of worth. They're figuring out their way in life. You're not teaching them anything valuable by suspending them both for 10 days. I am telling you, have them shake hands and walk away from this like men, because in a few years, that's what they're going to be, and you're not helping. And she just refused. And I couldn't do anything. I should have been able to go, you know what, you're fired. You're fired, and you'll never work in public education again. I am a taxpayer, and I'm exercising my authority over you. I couldn't do a thing. And I went home and I told my son, I said, you have my support. You did nothing wrong. You're not in trouble. You're not grounded. You're not losing anything. And if this happens again, you do the same thing. But if I ever catch you starting the fight, you're going to have hell to pay with me. I just don't get it. I don't get it. And that's not toxic.
That becomes its own teachable moment, though. In life, in the real world, it is possible to do everything right and still lose. And sometimes kids need to learn that.
That's a great lesson. That's a great way to put it.
I mean, you did everything right. You still lost. It happens. That's life. Life's not fair. And here's a great example of it, son. But you know what? We'll do better next time, or we'll do the same thing next time, or whatever. But just be prepared that even though you always do things right, or you always do things the right way, the world doesn't always agree that you should win every time.
I want to say something real quick about that situation with the 2A coming up in your kid's class, Squid. Shame on that teacher, for starters, for not explaining to the students that name calling is disrespectful and that won't be tolerated in that class. Because that's not hosting a healthy discussion when you can let kids resort to name calling, which then turns into screaming, which then turns into what you see. And then also shame on that teacher for not explaining to the kids that in this country, you can own firearms and you can also choose not to. So if somebody does, they have a right to do it. In a discussion, let's move on. It's really that simple. You know, instead of letting it go on and call names and school shooter comes out, that's the kind of stuff that does lead to the problems that we see. And I mean, it's just, that's a case of poor classroom management right there. They should understand that in your classroom, that's your domain. If you, name calling happens all the time. We call each other names all the time. We yell at each other all the time, whatever. But in this classroom, this is my castle, and that's not going to be tolerated. That's not how young adults are supposed to act. So sorry. This is my.
No. And somebody who does this for a living, your perspective is useful because there needs to be more people like you out there. This guy, if I had gone in there and said, hey, dude, what the heck what are you doing? He'd be like, don't talk to me. Go talk to my union steward. I work for the union. I don't work for you. No, you don't work for me. I'm the taxpayer. No, I work for my union. and that they're protected. This guy can't get fired unless he commits a crime. Like they would have to have evidence that he actually committed a crime. So he can push his agenda all day long. And I've had some people tell me, well, see, you should send a kid to private school or homeschool him because of the agenda. No. When he got home and told me what happened, I sat down with him. I parented him, and I explained that he did the right thing by keeping his calm and because when I go to these rallies, I have to keep my calm when there's a person with a megaphone lying about us, calling us baby killers and all the other things that they say about us, right? And he did the right thing. And I'm okay with how he reacted. I'm okay with the fact that he was able on his own to figure out how to do this. Now you say, yeah, but what about teacher? What about it? Once again, the union. They're protected by the union. There's nothing I can do. He's only got a year and a half to graduate. Just get through it. Put your head down and just get through it. And that's exactly what he did. And that teaches him a valuable lesson in life, because you could have that great job with a great pay that allows you to have a great life, and you got to shut your mouth. And I've been there, and that's the way it is. Or you can raise your kid with their head in the sand, and they think they can say whatever they want, wherever they want, and there's no consequences, which goes back to entitlement, right?
Well, and yeah, I mean the name, like Travis T says out there, name calling starts the dialogue going down the drain. Name calling, especially I just heard somebody say this on a show I was watching or listening to earlier today. When you demonize somebody, you end conversation. You call somebody evil, you call somebody Hitler, or you call somebody, you tell somebody that the dead children's blood is on their hands. Okay, conversation's over. There's nothing else that you and I don't have anything to talk about now. If you say that to me, that I'm the person who is responsible for these innocent victims' deaths, when no, I'm not. Okay, yeah, the conversation's over. I have nothing to say to you. You probably have nothing else to say to me, although that person might have a lot of things they want to say to me. But the dialogue is gone, the discourse is gone, and now it's just name calling back and forth. And a prudent person will understand that and stop the conversation. But that's just it, So yeah, I mean, it's time to wrap up. My beautiful producer is telling me it's past bedtime, and my other beautiful co-host is trying to tell me it's time for her to go outside. So we're going to wrap this up. I do want to say this: one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given, and parents, teachers, the people, just human beings in general who interact with other human beings. Listen to this. I'm going to drop a little truth bomb or advice bomb on you, and you guys can like it or ignore it, whatever. When somebody is talking, pay attention to yourself. Are you listening to what they're telling you, or are you simply waiting for your turn to talk? If you are doing the first one, you can have a real conversation. If you are doing the second one, it's not a real conversation. So keep that in mind when you're in a real conversation, or when you're in any conversation. If you're listening to them to hear what they're saying, cool. If you're just waiting for your turn to talk, then just turn around and walk away. You're not doing them or you any good. So
yeah, there's something called active listening, and it's the preferential way to do it.
Yep, and ask clarifying questions if you want to understand it. Squib's really good about that. Sometimes I'll say something and Squib will text me the next day and be like, when you said this, did you mean this? And I'll be like, well, no, I don't understand why you thought that I meant that. Here's what I really meant. And we talk about whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, but I do wait for my turn, because I really don't care what any of you guys or anybody else has to say. I only care about what I have to say. So I'm both.
I know. It's all
and I like name calling as long as it's accurate. Like, if you're going to call me something I'm not, that's where I get insulted. But if I kind of earned it because I'm being something whole, then yeah, I earned it.
Well, that's how men talk to each other too. I mean, go watch the movie. Why did I just draw a complete blank? The Get Off My Lawn movie, Clint Eastwood.
Gran Torino.
Thank you. I completely had a Laguna Mentala there. I go watch Gran Torino, and that's how men talk to men, and it's not toxic. It's just masculine. We call each other names. It's what happens. Those of us that are smarter than the average bear don't call everybody names all the time. There's a time and a place, right? Just like 4-letter words. There's a time and a place. Learn when to not use them. that's just as important as learning when to use them.
Male bonding is
Yeah,
all
it's
it
male
is.
bonding stuff, right? I could call any one of these guys on my panel, whatever, and they're gonna laugh and call me some. The game is, for those of you that don't understand, the game is to try to come up with a better zinger back. If you call me one thing, I'm going to call you something worse, and we'll escalate it until we both run out of ideas. So, all right, the puppies, Ansi, let's go to the list, and we will thank everybody again. Thank you, John Petrolino, Decoding Firearms. I'm not going to read through the whole thing again, but let's put that up on the screen. If you want the website, johnpetrolino.com. There it is, Decoding Firearms. I've got my copy right here. And we'll give everybody a chance to sign off, of course. Yes, the barbershop scene, that was priceless. Let's get that back off of there. We'll go back to there. All right. If you commented, then my beautiful producer, put your name down, and I get to say thank you for taking part in the discussion. If you didn't commented, then we didn't know you were out there. Lurker, creeper. That's okay. Omaha, you're cool. All right. I got you. You're fine. Travis P11 was out there. Hillbilly Up, Irish Wristwatcher, DJ Play Nice, Defense Dad, Chris from the 740, Patriot in the Dark, Blitz G23, Jeff Moeller, Gizzard Gary, Travis T, Sons of Anarchy 92, Agorizer, Scott 79, Mike, Chris Winsett was out there, which I don't think I've seen that name before. So welcome, Chris. Crumpy was out there, John Crump Live, Carolina EDC Reviews, and Jamie Brown. And again, if we missed you, you didn't talk enough and you slipped through the cracks, but that rarely happens. Not when she's running the list anyway. She's very good at this. You guys know how that works. She does the typing. I do the talking because I can't talk when I type and I can't type when I talk. So, all right, let's go real quick around the horn and we will give everybody a chance to wrap up closing thoughts. Squib, we'll start with you.
Just waiting for you to finish talking so I could talk. That was it. Have a good night.
Appreciate the courtesy of at least waiting until I finished. Travis, closing thoughts. Where can people find you?
Yeah, just check out my YouTube channel, Travis P11, and I've got my Caliber Corner podcast I do at 8 a.m. Central Time on my channel, Travis P11. Otherwise, that's it. I appreciate the invite. I think we had a good discussion this evening, and hopefully people took a few things away from this discussion that they can integrate into their lives and make the world a better place for you and me.
Right. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Travis. Defense Dad, I'll let you back clean up.
I think it was a good conversation tonight. Bottom line, listen to your kids, teach them right from wrong, teach them just to be decent human beings. I'll be back to making videos here in a few weeks. I kind of took the summer off as a hiatus so I can spend my time off with the kiddo. That's about it.
Cool. All right. Fellas, thanks for joining in the conversation. Appreciate you guys for being here. Those of you out there in the chat, we appreciate you keeping it going too. The questions, the comments, good stuff tonight. Thanks for all that. On behalf of Squib and Travis, Defense Dad, Sandhills Sweetheart, Liberty Bell, and myself, thank you very much for joining us. We love you. God bless you. We'll see you next week, Thursday night, 8 o'clock Central Time. But it's time to go. The puppy needs to get some space on the lawn. So you know what you got to do. Get off my lawn.